Hi, I'm Erica. Welcome to Moving from Center. In this video, we'll be doing some breathing for COVID relief. So one of the main symptoms that people have with COVID are respiratory symptoms. And I've heard a lot people saying that it's hard to take a deep breath. So with the sensation of our center round, we're going to encourage breathing into the different areas of our ribs to restore our breath and to slowly deepen our breath so that we can get some relief. So to begin, I'm going to have you come onto your belly and take your center round with you. And we're going to start at the bottom of the sternum. So find the bottom of your chest bone, and there's a little pointy part, and maybe come right underneath that. So you're in that that triangle region. And this will be right around that area of the diaphragm, the main breathing muscle, or the muscle of respiration. And this pressure here will just encourage us to first breathe down into that region. So come on down. Finding a place where you can rest the ball comfortably. And remember, if you're feeling sensitive right now or feeling restricted, it might feel good to rest up on your forearms or even stack your fists to rest your head on something, or you might even find a block to let your head rest on so that you can unweight yourself from the ball a little bit and find that just right amount of pressure. And it might take a little moving to allow yourself to settle into it. And what I've heard is the hard part is breathing in. So we'll focus on the phase of breath that's easier, and following the exhale and slowing down the breath so that the nervous system can start to come to a pause and a reset. So letting your head rest on whatever surface is available and allowing the arms to support you so that you can find that just right amount of pressure. Maybe you start up on something and then eventually you let it go. And now allow your breath to fill, like a cup being filled with water from the bottom up. Allow the breath to fill right into where the center round and the body meet. As if that's the bottom of a cup being filled, and start to feel the breath rise and expand outward into the sides and the backs of the ribs. And don't try to fill the breath the full completely. So just fill to that first place of resistance. And then maybe pause at the top. And then maybe you can even sip in a little bit more once you pause there. And then just exhale, let it wash out, maybe through the mouth. And you might have done that a couple of times while I gave that description. So breathe at your own pace. And make sure that you have that just right amount of resistance in the ball. If you're feeling any struggle from too much pressure, too much sensation, unweight yourself with something under your head and your arms. So again, breathing in right to where the round and the body meet. Feeling yourself up from the bottom. Just fill to that point of resistance. Not trying to get all the way full. Pausing at that place of resistance. And then maybe taking a little extra sip in. Maybe pausing there, maybe even one more sip this time. If you feel too much, you might notice that you start to cough or you can't keep that tension or that fullness. And then you know, oh, I've done a little too much. And let it go and just begin again. So we're looking for some breath control and for slow expansion. There might almost be a sense that the lungs and the diaphragm have lost a little of that elasticity. So we're slowly trying to add a little stretch to it. So think of stretching taffy or stretching putty. If you try to go too much, it breaks. If you pull really fast or if you over stretch it. So we're trying to go slow and steady, creating a little bit more give. So do that a few more times with that visual in mind of just finding that first little bit of stretch and holding. Letting time warm it up in a way so that you can take one more little sip on top of that, adding a little more stretch. One more time. And then let it all the way out. Empty fully if you can. Follow the full exhalation. Again, without forcing. If you force it, you might notice that you start to cough. That's okay. Just notice and be gentle with yourself. That might happen, and it's totally normal and totally okay. Just work within whatever is comfortable at the moment. And you'll notice with this resistance in the front of the body, it actually helps free up the breath into the back of the body. Because the front of the body is being restricted or compressed, and then there's spaciousness and space for the breath to move up into the back body with this anterior compression. And you might have noticed there was a sensation of restriction now maybe in the sides of the body. So let's come into the sides of the ribs now, and we'll do a similar thing. And you might again want that support under the head so the head and neck can feel supported or neutral. A pillow is great. Make sure that the shoulder blade is clear so you can move the shoulder blade forward and back a little bit. I like to drag the bottom arm out. And then I'm just going to do a little rocking from side to side. And I'm just going to slide my top arm across the bottom arm. And it's like I'm rocking a boat. You kind of lap side to side, a little rocking, just to create a little softening in these side ribs. And I like to think of it as I'm rolling over the diaphragm, which is the primary breathing muscle, and the sides of the ribs, giving it some sensation to wake it up a little bit. And then wherever it feels just right, like for me, it feels right if I roll forward a little bit. And it also feels right if I pull my knees up, because it takes any tension out of the front of the body and allows me to breathe into the back body more. I'm just going to come back to stillness and breathe. I'm going to breathe right into where the body and the round meet, feeling that first place of resistance. And then I'll do that same sipping in a little bit more. Try not to sip into the throat, but sends that sip right into where the body and the tool meet. And then control it out. Don't go so much that you start to cough uncontrollably or that you have to gasp, but just work in a comfortable range where we're looking at working in that in-between range, not going to the extremes, but starting to slowly stretch that comfortable working space. to regain some elasticity, to regain some play, and then you'll see how that momentum starts to improve our ability to work to full inhale and full exhale. So go slowly with yourself. Let's do that one more time here. Breathe in and then add 3 little sips at the top. Pause, feel that first bit of tension. Pause after the sip. Again, breathe into where the ball and body meet, feeling the tension or that pressure of the breath, expanding the space in the lungs and the space in the rib cage, and then let it go. And you can play with this as long as you want. We'll do one more together. Beautiful. Now let's just keep rolling in that circle. Let's come onto the back. And as you come onto the back, I'm going to give you a little bit more freedom to move. I'm going to take it behind my head so that my head feels supported. And we'll do just a little bit of play in the movement of the rib cage here, just to free up the spine. So first, maybe you lift your hips a little bit and you roll along the back of the ribs into that space between the shoulder blades. That might feel good. And then let the hips drop, let the sacrum drop, anchor the sacrum, and you might allow the elbows to come wide. Really press the elbows back and then allow yourself to drop back. Try not to force that extension through the spine, but let the chest open by pressing the elbows back. Breathe in here. And then as you exhale, bring the elbows together and think of rolling up over the ball. Don't try to crunch. Make this more of a rolling. And as you roll, feel the sternum compress down and look towards your navel. And then go ahead, allow yourself to roll back out over the ball. Press the elbows out. Even feel the bottom corners of the shoulder blades pull together a little bit to feel the opening in the chest. And then as you exhale, elbows come in, gaze goes down, chin goes down, nose goes down, rolling up. Try that a few more times. Letting the breath guide the motion, staying out of that crunchy type movement. Think of more of a wave or a rolling, spreading through the chest by pushing the elbows back. Breathe into the back body, still feeling the breath fill from where the center round and the body meet. And then as you exhale, think of a contraction, like a pushing out to clear the air from the ribs. Do that one more time, feeling that sense of expansion, letting the air fill, using the body movement to encourage the perfusion of air. And that was in the front and back direction. And now let's do it in the side to side direction. You might feel now like, oh, I can rest my elbows back towards the floor and I can let my head rest on my hands. So try to encourage that movement of the elbows down and the head back as much as possible, because I'd love for you to be able to just glide the arms along the floor for this next part. So now we'll work on breathing into this space that often we forget to breathe into, kind of in the armpit region or the side of the shoulder blade, in those ribs that get covered by the shoulder blade. So what we'll do is we'll let your elbows reach in opposite directions. So you're going to reach one elbow down towards your foot and one elbow up overhead. Almost that sensation of pulling rope, like reaching up to pull a rope, but with your elbow. And then breathe into that place under the armpit and on the side of the shoulder blade. And then exhale, coming back to center. Then let's change directions. Breathe into that place in the side ribs. And then come back to center. Maybe you have to play with the position of the ball, finding the just right spot to support your rib cage and your body. And don't try to go really far. You'll notice that as you do repetitions, inhale and stretch. Exhale, return to center. It's like every bit goes just a little bit more. You'll feel if you go past that edge or that barrier that there's either, again, the sensation of coughing or getting stuck or a gasp. So stay out of that and just work through a smaller pendulum of motion and notice how this momentum starts to create a little bit more elasticity and flexibility and recoil. So you hit the edge on one side, and then it's almost like it recoils you, allowing you to go a little further on the other side. So opening the sides of the lungs, opening the sides of the rib cage like you're spreading the gills of the ribs as if you were a little fish. And as if you're in water, keep this motion really fluid. One more time in each direction. And then just roll to the other side. I'll flip so that I'm not pointing away from you, but all you have to do is just keep rolling in that circle that we're creating and come to the other side. Finding that just right place. So taking a moment to land, finding support for your head if that feels right, and making sure the shoulder blade's free so you're not compressing the underside. You want to make sure that you're able to breathe into this bottom side because your breath is going to fill into where your center and your body meet. And just notice that place that feels just right to have the pressure or the compression. And think of that compression like someone's giving you a hug. And you know when you get a tight hug, your body just goes like a little baby or a little child. If you're not feeling well, all you want is that tight hug of a mother or a parent. So in that same way, give that sensation to yourself, and from the pressure of your center, just allow yourself to collapse into it. And then like you're filling a glass of water, fill the breath right into where your round and the body meet. Just finding that first bit of resistance. And then you can start to add those little sips at the top, creating a little bit more elasticity, a little bit more stretch, a little bit more movement, but grading it so you're not pushing. Breathe in and hold. Feel the tension build. Breathe in maybe a tiny bit more. Hold. One more time. So that you're gently stretching the lungs, stretching the ribs, and then letting it all go, resetting. It's okay if you cough. Begin again. Sipping in the air. Gently stretching, like visualizing like taffy pulling or putty pulling, that you're slowly creating that elasticity. And then allow it to slowly recoil. One more breath. One last sip in. Hold it. And let it all out. And then let's end where we began, coming back onto your belly, this time bringing the ball up a little bit higher in the sternum, making sure that you're underneath the Adam's apple and the collarbones, but coming a little bit higher in the chest now. I like to think about taking it right to the collarbones and then dragging it down a little bit. And I do this by placing it under here and then pushing through my toes so that it pulls down. So I just get a little bit more length in the front of my body, and then I let my head rest on my hands. And now it might feel nice, this might be tender. It might feel nice to do just a little side to side motion to create a little rocking in here if it's sensitive at all. Also, allowing a moment to find that place that feels just right and where you feel like you need the support. And again, like the pressure of a tight hug, allow your body just to melt over and around your center. And now start to visualize the image of a hot air balloon and your breath like the fire that causes that balloon to rise. So now as you breathe in, feel that breath like the fire rise up into the space between your shoulder blades, feeling the place in the upper back between the shoulder blades rise and spread like a hot air balloon rising. Not forcing, just right, like you're floating in air. And then as you exhale, just feel that that coasting. So you've filled, and then as you exhale, it's like you're flying, like you're coasting in that space before the next puff of fire or air. So again, feel that breath rise up into the space between your shoulder blades like a hot air balloon rising. And then on your exhale, just allow yourself to coast and float, finding spaciousness, ease, and lightness in the upper back. See if you can keep your jaw and your mouth and your tongue soft as you do this. Close your eyes and feel the warmth of the breath. Exhaling into ease. Feeling the shoulders soften as you exhale. Taking about 3 more breaths on your own pace here. Feeling the rising and the falling of the upper back. With each exhale, allowing yourself to drift into sensations of spaciousness, of ease. Feeling a lightness in the upper back and in the chest. And then removing your center, letting your head rest on your hands, keeping your head straight for the time being. And then let's just take one more full breath in and out together. We'll get those little sips here, expanding the breath into every nook and cranny of the lungs. So breathing in just to a comfortable, moderate level. Then taking another sip in. Pausing and feeling that. Taking 2 more sips, breathing in again. Notice if there's anywhere the breath hasn't gotten to yet.
Taking that last sip, feeling the breath permeate every nook and cranny of the lungs and the rib cage. Feeling the fullness, the spaciousness, that return of elasticity. And then go ahead and exhale, sigh it all out. And then do that one more time on your own. Breathing in with 3 sips, feeling the breath go to any last place in the ribs and the lungs that feels like it needs to be flushed out. Pausing at the top of each sip, reassessing, sensing and feeling the fullness. And then letting it all go, feeling the lungs and the ribs recoil back to neutral. And then slowly, maybe bringing your hands under your shoulders. And before we come up to sit, just pressing into child's pose, letting yourself rest here in a narrow or a wide leg child's pose. For me, it feels good to keep that narrow child's pose and let my arms come by my sides and let the shoulders round forward. And feel the spaciousness in my back. And then I'll just roll up to sit from here. Taking another breath, feeling the change and assessing the benefits of this practice. And if you're going through COVID or recovering from COVID, be gentle with yourself. Don't try to breathe too deeply or breathe into resistance, but just start small and notice that with repetition, with time, with gentleness, you'll feel how that elasticity and that expansion and contraction starts to improve and increase so that by the end of your practice, you feel like you can expand and fill and empty with more ease and with more space through larger range. So thank you for joining me for this practice. Please come back here whenever you need. I hope to see you next time.